When Louisa May Alcott was in her early 30s, she traveled to Europe for the first time. She worked as a companion to a cranky, invalid woman called Anna Weld, a little bit similar to Jo working for Aunt March, but Anna Weld wasn't that old. When they were staying in Switzerland, one of the hotel guests was a Polish composer called Ladislas Wisniewski, and Louisa called him Laddie, which is very close to the name Laurie. According to Louisa's diary, he had tuberculosis and Louisa was a nurse, so she took care of him and she liked his company. Ladislas was 21 and Louisa was 32, so he was about 11 years younger. I read an interview with Louisa's nephew, and he said that even in old age, his aunt was a prankster. She liked to make jokes about people. In her diary, Louisa writes that Laddie was also a prankster, and then they would make fun of the guests at the hotel and would make practical jokes on them. In Little Woman, Jo and Laurie are known for that. They like to make pranks on people. I was never a Jo and Laurie shipper, but I do know many who have read Little Woman as children and then read it again as adults and moved on from shipping Jo and Laurie to shipping Jo and Fredrik, because Laurie's character doesn't always age well, especially when it comes to pranking. I like Amy and Laurie together, and I think people are aware that girls mature a lot earlier than boys. For some of the pranks that Laurie does in Little Woman, you just have to wonder if they are supposed to be funny, or is it Louisa May Alcott pointing out that he is immature because the narrator presents the jokes as being harmless. Louisa May Alcott describes herself as a hero worshipper, and for Jo, Laurie is a hero simply because Laurie is a boy. There's a chapter where Laurie sends letters to Meg in his tutor's name, and Meg believes that it is John who is writing to her, and she sends him these very personal, private answers. And when Mommy finds out, she lectures Laurie, and Jo is like, "My poor Laurie," and Meg is crying in her room at the same time. I don't think that was a harmless prank. Jo and Laurie are like 16 when this happens, but when you move on to part 2 of Little Woman. Hello friends, it is Nina from the Little Woman podcast. Just to let you all know that the Little Woman podcast episode transcripts are now available as books. You can find them as paperbacks and ebooks. They are wonderful reading for all the fans of Louisa May Alcott. You can find all the links from the description. And now, back to the show. And Jo and Laurie are in their 20s. Jo has grown out from that behavior. She is a lot more interested in writing and education, and there are times when she is avoiding Laurie because Laurie is now giving her attention that she does not want. Laurie is still behaving like a teenager, and he's still pulling out those pranks. That is not in any Little Woman film adaptation or TV adaptation. Laurie does grow out of that because of Amy, but it takes some time. The time in Vevey was unusual for Louisa. Laddie would take her on romantic walks and bring her flowers. He would compose music for her, and he would talk to her about their shared future. Louisa didn't like Anna Weld that much, but then something happened between Laddie and Miss Weld. Laddie is asked to leave the premises, and Louisa has a short story called Anna's Whim, where a rich heiress called Anna says no when a man called Ladislas proposes to them. When Louisa's employment ended, she traveled to Paris and spent a day with Ladislas without a chaperone, and at the time, this was very scandalous. Unmarried woman with a young man. According to Louisa's diary, some kissing happened in the carriage, and I am rephrasing here. It was time for the old woman to turn her home and solitude. I remember reading that and thinking, girl, you are only 32 years old. Why do you call yourself an old woman? There are many occasions in Louisa's diaries where she calls herself an old soul. In Louisa's diaries there are pages ripped off and mysterious words couldn't be written. Honestly, this is what makes Louisa May Alcott studies so interesting. I believe we also see this in Little Woman, when Joe says no to Laurie, because they simply just couldn't be. In part 2 of Little Woman, Laurie pretty often tries to make moves on Joe. There's this moment where Joe is like, Amy's so ridiculous when she's flirting with the young man, and Laurie says, maybe you should take lessons from her. Alcott biographer Harriet Risen writes that it is possible that Ladislas Wisniewski was preying on a wealthy woman. Louisa was no way wealthy at this point. This was before Little Woman was written. She was very poor. He was an exceptionally good-looking young man and could gain people's sympathies. We can only imagine what it was like for Louisa to find out that Laddie was flirting with other women at the same time when he was flirting with her. If any of the Polish listeners have Wisniewskis in the family, feel free to contact me if you know anything about this mysterious real-life Laurie. When it comes to Ladislas, I don't think there is enough fact-based information about him and his relationship with Louisa. I think the most likely scenario is that Laddie developed a crush on her because she was nursing him. Florence Nightingale syndrome. Laddie asked her to call him with the nickname Vario, which his mother used to call him. In Little Woman, one of the reasons why Laurie wants to marry Joe is that Joe can take care of him and be a maternal figure for him, someone who tells him what to do in his life. Perhaps he had a crush on Louisa because she took such a mother-like interest in him. And Louisa liked to take care of people. She worked as a nurse in the war and she loved young boys. Joe in Little Woman loves boys so much that she wants to start a whole school for them. Another real-life Laurie was Louisa's dear friend, Alf Whitman, who was also 10 years younger than Louisa. They met through their shared theater hobby. There never was anything romantic between Louisa and Alf, but some of the brother-sister moments between Joe and Laurie in the novel come from Alf Whitman, especially the theater sequences. Because of this relationship between Wisniewski and Louisa, I don't believe any public statements that Louisa has made in any interview, because there are times when she outright lies to the press. She was often asked who was the real-life Laurie, and then she would say, it was this nice young man I met in Europe. Then in the letters between Louisa and her sister May, they call him boring, and at some point they had both given him money. Laddie never paid it back. Louisa did keep in touch with Ladislas. It seems that at some point he returned to Poland and started a family, but I haven't been able to find anything else about his movements. Why did Greta Gerwig say that Laurie wants Joe to step into adulthood, when in the book Joe is so tired of Laurie because he's so immature? Louisa lived during a time when modern celebrity worship culture was starting to take shape. She never liked Little Woman that much, and I think I know why. Every day Louisa would get tons of mail from children and adults all over the world which all said, please marry Joe to Laurie. And Laurie was based on her ex. But the world would never know that because the money that she received from Little Woman supported her entire extended family. Just like today, the yellow press wanted to know everything about celebrities' love life. If they had found out that Louisa had a fling with a man so much younger and a foreigner, she could have lost her publishing deals and her entire reputation. Risen also points out the possibility that she paid him money to shut him down. Louisa always called Laddie as my boy, same way as Joe calls Laurie as my boy in Little Woman. I don't know if Louisa had romantic feelings for him at some point, but he turned out to be a disappointment. And at the same time, it also sounds very much like a mother and son relationship.